So the other day I was asked about the difference between being a leader and a manager. Actually, I posted a statement that said, I love leadership, but I hate management. And I think that the older I get and the more I'm into this, the more that's true. I'm not sure if you grow out of it or evolve out of it or what. I mean, like, it's not that being a leader is not being a manager, or being a manager is wrong when it comes to being a leader. It's just that I think people have different strengths, and so I just decided to kind of do a segment about what the differences are. I get to read and be exposed to a lot of information, and I came across like this blog years ago, and I don't really know where it is or where it was. I was just reading it, and it helped me to frame this thought, about the difference, the distinctive difference between leaders and managers. And I think that when people know their leadership style, if it's a leader style or a manager/leader style, that it makes them more efficient, and they can protect their proficiency in terms of how they execute and communicate with people. So one of the key things about leaders is leaders develop more leaders. So leaders are often like setting a paradigm, or they're often creating some type of parameters of the why, selling the vision, the why, the what, but don't really get into the how. When it comes to the how, leaders love to leave that up to people's self-expression so that they can have their personality into the execution. But how you do it is not really up to the leader. The leader is not so much teaching the people that they are training to lead what to think, as much as they are training them how to think, which is about consciousness and not just copycatting or communicating directives that's already been set. Whereas a manager, in a sense, they have subordinates, like it's higher ups. It's like top-down leadership, because management is still a form of leadership. It's just that management is a top-down leadership, whereas like, hey, make sure that you do this, report it back to me, etc., etc., etc. And I'm not saying that that's not necessary, because especially when you delegate some information, it's important that people report back and have communication, because some people enjoy working for a manager, not so much a micromanager, but a manager that gives them parameters, timelines, and tasks, so they can feel a sense of accomplishment. Check it off, check it off, check it off, check it off. Because in leadership, almost your work is never done, whereas when you are a manager, your work is done when the project is done. Hence the word project management, right? And so there's some distinctive difference between leaders and managers. And so when it comes to these directives, managers are all about stability, right? They're all about creating stability, where leaders are about change. People that are connected to management, they love to let the dust settle. They're like, okay, we got to get this where it's consistent, where it doesn't change, where it's the same. So we create a rhythm and we create a routine. Where leaders are looking for opportunities for change. They understand things like, if it's not broke, break it, because eventually it's going to break. They're more on the cutting edge of innovation, and usually they love to innovate because they don't have to manage the change. They just get to create the change and leave it up to a manager/leader to decide how that change is going to be executed. So there's no frustration when you understand, if you're functioning or operating in a leadership path where you are initiating change, and if you work for a person that has this leadership style, or work with a person that has this leadership style, then you should expect change. You should expect change often. Change shouldn't be a thing that frustrates you. Change shouldn't be a thing that you worry about. It should be a thing you look for and decide how you're going to manage or initiate the change. The second thing that are different between managers and leaders is managers make rules and leaders break rules. So managers make rules and leaders break rules. Managers are all about accountability, holding people accountable, make sure they know what's necessary in order for them to function, creating parameters so people can produce in their purpose. Whereas leaders are looking for how, like I said before, innovate. How can I make it better? What's different about this? They have the courage to break rules, the courage to break tradition. Where managers love tradition, they love studying history, what worked before, how can they supply. So if there's a safety, we're going to have a predictable pattern so we can have a predictable outcome. Whereas leaders are like, that may have worked before, but this is a new time and that might not work this time, so I don't want a predictable outcome. I want a different outcome that gives me a different result, right? Both are necessary, and you have to understand what is your strength and what is your style. The third thing that's different is leaders set direction and managers plan details. So leaders say the what or the where we're going. Managers usually deal with logistics of how we're going to get there, right? Leaders usually don't like logistics because logistics drive them crazy, and all the details that are absolutely essential and necessary in order to execute what it is that you're trying to accomplish. Whereas leaders just want to set the direction. We're going here. We're doing it this way. We're excited about the future. This is where the future is going. This is where we're going. This is what's happening next. Next. And the managers are all about now. That gets us to the next, right? Doesn't mean managers aren't looking for the next. They just want the most efficient way to move into the next, which means details. Especially when you're moving a lot of people, people need to know the details, how it works. And so leaders think about the big picture, macro, and managers usually think about micro, fitting into the macro, all right? Number 4, leaders shape culture, where managers execute culture. An effective and efficient leader that has a leadership style has to have great managers around them, because without managers around them, there's going to be no executing of the ideas, right? Everybody has a great idea, but people that are legendary have great execution. So managers possess this ability to execute because they manage the details. They manage the in between the lines, whereas leaders love to draw outside the lines. They're creating some parameter, some dynamic, some paradigm, something that does not exist yet. And so they're not married to the rules because 9 times out of 10, what they're trying to create perhaps does not even exist, and they thrive in that. Whereas managers want to have lines for the sake of defining it. They're not working against each other, they're working together. It's just 2 different leadership styles, right? So one is about shaping culture of an organization, shaping the culture or of the times, where managers are about fitting in and moving the idea forward together, collaborative, so that creativity can be expressed in a collaborative way and communicated properly to the people, so the idea does not get lost in translation. Does that make sense? Because I think people sometimes are functioning in and out and don't know why they're finding frustration. So hopefully this helps provide some clarity. So number 5, managers tend to avoid conflict, whereas leaders use conflict as a benefit, right? Or an asset. Anytime you come into conflict, it's an opportunity to grow. It's an opportunity to learn. It's an opportunity to step into a path that perhaps wasn't planned or did not exist, and it reveals something to you that you couldn't have known unless it fell apart or unless something happened. So leaders look for opportunities to step into conflict as a benefit, so we can solve a problem or heal something or fix something before it becomes too bad. Whereas managers, they avoid conflict because they need everything to function, roll smoothly, everything on pace, everything producing, and the calmer it is and the less conflict that's necessary, the better it is for the manager, because they just want to get it done and they don't want to get into all the nuances of how we're going to expose that or experience that, right? So when it comes to leaders like to take that to take that tension and manage the tension, right, through creative friction, right, and manage the tension of the problem and not so much deal with the normalcy or everything being calm, right? It's too quiet for a leader. They want to go ruffle up and make some noise and make something happen, all right? Number 6, and I only got 10, is that managers prefer existing roads when setting a direction, whereas leaders prefer new roads, or like I said, new paths. So leaders like being trailblazers, where managers like being pathfinders. They like being, what's the path of least resistance that gets us to the same outcome, whereas leaders are like, yeah, I want to find my own path. I'm going to create my own path, right? And so you have to know if the leader or the people you're working with are leaders or managers, because if not, you're going to create frustration and create tension that'll never let you have resolve or results. So managers like finding paths, proven paths, and leaders like finding new paths for new direction and new understanding. Number 7, managers tend to take credit sometimes, and leaders tend to give credit away. So sometimes leaders give the credit away because they literally delegated it all away. So whoever did it, whoever accomplished it, they got it done. Perhaps it was their idea, but they give it away. Managers tend to take credit, not in the sense that they diminish the people that helped them do it, but 9 times out of 10, a manager had to do so much of the infrastructure of whatever was trying to get done that literally they did do almost everything but do it, right? And so they don't tend to always take the credit like, I, me. They share it with their team, but the infrastructure that they built to help it get accomplished has so much to do with what they implemented in order for the execution to take place, that ends up being the reality that they did it, and you just pretty much follow the email, check the box, or follow the list. You know what I'm saying? You didn't create the list. Whereas leaders, they just have this big idea, then they show up and it's all done. It's like, hey, you did it. Everybody took care of it, and it's just great, right? So that's the difference. Number 8. Managers make decisions. Leaders facilitate decisions. Sometimes managers make decisions because it's like on them to make the decision, on them to somebody told them this is your responsibility, so they have to make a decision. The longer they delay making a decision, the longer it lives in limbo and never accomplishes the outcome. Whereas leaders facilitate decisions because leaders like to help people think. So what do you think? Well, how does that feel? Well, what happens? They like people to co-create with them because that helps them to facilitate the decision making, and the bottom line decision doesn't always fall on them. Now, in case of an impasse, perhaps they may have to step up and make the final decision. But if everybody is co-creating in the decision-making process, then they'll also 9 times out of 10 own whatever the outcomes and own the process in a greater way than if it was just handed out or handed down to them. So leaders like to discuss the decisions so that they can participate in the facilitation of what happens in the outcome. Number 9, so managers can tell the vision to other people. Effective managers, what you need, can tell the vision to other people, but effective leaders, they just sell the vision to other people. Like they try to paint the big picture, they're passionate about the vision, and they try to sell it so you can feel the emotion of it, the why, where it's coming from, and get on board to want to participate or contribute in whatever way that is for you to contribute, to give yourself to the bigger idea. They love that. Whereas managers, they want to tell the vision. They want to make sure you need good managers, because if you don't have good managers that communicate the vision properly in the same spirit that it was initiated, you create a whole dynamic where I like to call where things get lost in translation. And when you look up, you end up babysitting something that's so far away from what the original idea is. It's like the telephone game in leadership. You have no idea, like, how did it end up looking like this? Because nobody effectively communicated or told the vision or told what it was that we were trying to accomplish. And a lot of times without effective managers, you have a whole bunch of people going around doing a lot of stuff without even knowing the origin or the why or where it came from. And that babysitting for a leader is just a headache. Whereas a manager, they get in there, they thrive, they tell it again. Leaders like to sell the vision, managers like to tell the vision. Number 10, all right? Managers are transactional and leaders are transformational, or I like to also say they are relational. So leaders like building with people that enjoy what they're doing. If I call a meeting with leaders, I want to come in the room and everybody's excited about being in there. They love what they're doing. We're about to get to work. We're about to create something. The energy is right. The space for the new idea. The love is in there. Some food, right? People laughing. People talking. It's not tense. It's relaxed so that something can be birthed in this environment of love. People are in purpose. They're in passion. That's relational. That's transformational. We're about to do something that's not been done before. We're about to execute something in some kind of matter. Whereas managers tend to deal with people transactional. They're like, I'm really not concerned about being your friend. It's not that important that we get along, that we like each other. I need you to execute the outcome. Are you willing to do it? That's great. If you're not willing to do it, then I'll find somebody that is, because we got to get this done. They're about the business. They're about the timelines. And you need both, right? You need, when you come into a meeting with a manager, it is about the timelines. How we going to get it done? Who's going to do it? The delegations of the execution, or it never happened. But then you also need leaders to have relational environments where people can get together and explore and dream and imagine and think, so that they can figure out the best way to execute, excuse me, the bigger idea. So relational leadership is important, and transactional leadership is super important for efficiency and execution of the outcome. So both situations are necessary, right? So it's not putting one over the other, in my opinion. Sometimes people try to say, like, a leader is this and a manager is this, like they put them opposed. Me, I made the statement that I love leadership and I hate management, because I love leading people to a path. I do not like managing people, managing their attitudes, managing their behaviors, putting out fires. I don't enjoy that. It stunts my creativity. It stunts my ability to dream. It stunts my ability to imagine. I want to lead. I want to inspire people. I want people to own the idea, because it also was their idea and they was just looking for somebody to do it with, right? I don't like being transactional. I love being relational or transformational. I love co-creating over just telling people what to do. And so if you're a leader and not a manager, make sure that you know and understand your style, the style of the people that's working with you, and make sure great leaders have great managers around them, and managers, make sure you have great leaders around you so you don't get stuck in a rut, right? This lets everybody understand how we function and how we execute. So when I say I love leadership and I hate management, that's really what I meant in the big picture of the idea, because leadership is creating other leaders, where managers are teaching people to follow leadership to execute a vision or direction. That's my thoughts about it. I was asked, so I thought I'd tell you. That's what I meant when I said it. So, yeah, are you a leader or are you a